Yeah, but didn't we just watch that thing carefully? Out in front of us, out the window, light its engine and go... Well, I guess that's not what we're looking at, because that's a long ways away. What's the odds that it's from alien or Russian or something else? We were not about to cancel the moon mission and putt over there to find out which one it was.
Few UFO sightings by astronauts are as controversial than the ones involving Buzz Aldrin. Effectively, the believers say that UFOs followed him to the moon. Some even say that when they got to the moon, they were there already waiting for them.
Leroy, when you were up in space with your fellow astronauts, including the Russians, did you ever talk about extraterrestrials or UFOs? Was that ever a subject?
I think there's no doubt a lot of us astronauts have seen some weird things and you don't know for sure what they are.
One astronaut who experienced something he could not explain was Jerry Linenger, a man who logged an incredible 50 million miles in space travel in the 1990s and survived the most severe fire ever aboard an orbiting spacecraft.
So I had the privilege of flying on a shuttle flight, which was incredible, and living on the space station Mir, a Russian space station. So people ask me, have you seen a UFO? And, you know, I don't want to take this out of context, but unidentified flying objects, yes. I think we've all seen something that we're not exactly sure what that is up there. When I was on the Russian space station, there was one time I saw sort of a white globular-looking thing, kind of looked like a fish-shaped snowball, kind of off in the distance. And I actually called one of my roommates over and said, you know, what the heck is that? He says, you know, I don't know. And then we kind of scratched our heads and, well, maybe a nice chunk off the external tank and it's crossing our path again. You know, who knows? But it was definitely something that neither of us could identify.
It's not uncommon to see these things. I certainly wasn't shy about talking about the strange lights I thought were flying by. I haven't really formally reported per se, but I said it in clear in a radio transmission to my partner and see if he could see them too. The probability of, you know, an intelligent being coming to visit us, I think that's unlikely, but the probability is not zero.
But do you think that maybe they saw something like you did that we just didn't figure out what the actual thing was? Or maybe there were things that we can't explain?
Well, you know, never say never. I mean, I
the lunar surface. But according to Mitchell, for him, the most significant part of their voyage occurred as they were returning to Earth.
After I had done all my work and we were on the way home, I suddenly had an experience, which I will describe as ecstasy and exhilaration. And I realized everything is part of the same thing. And I realized that perhaps that with this experience, maybe the story of ourselves as told by our science was incomplete and perhaps flawed. And that maybe what we should be doing now is look very seriously again at what is our origin, what is our place in the universe. And that was kind of the epiphany of the experience I had in space.
Years later, Mitchell's life-changing experience inspired him to start investigating the UFO phenomenon.
I have not had any personal experience. However, I do know
雞歪 brain 嚟個 front 啊！我覺我 sperm 我哋咁樣崩身而亡咁啊！
and I listened and investigated all the sightings for dozens of years, and pretty sure it's all true.
崩我 brain 都係
This is all true. I'm trying to get this over done and reveal who we really do know.
You guys still feel that, NASA, they have secrets? Well, and you said, well, look, everybody in NASA would have to be keeping some secret. And that's wrong, too. These space programs have compartmentalized programs need to know.
No.
People within space programs don't need to know everything. They've got to keep things secret. They have to. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the exploration and perhaps even the colonization of space is what we are destined to do. I think it is wired within all of us that we inherently need to explore where we came from. I find it fascinating that there are stories out there about astronauts and alien encounters. We have in possession today photographic evidence.
Sure, we've all seen some odd-looking photos from NASA astronauts that are actually these unidentified aerial phenomena that we have no idea what they are.
There are some photos of possibly have you seen a Skylab photo of the 2 or 3 red lights? I've seen the photo you're talking about. Well, right. That's what I was just going to say, is that we have very good photos of that, and that is an anomaly. Launched on May 25th, 1973, Skylab was America's first space station and orbital scientific research vessel. After roughly 4 months in orbit, an astronaut aboard Skylab named Owen Garriott took a photograph of a mysterious object outside the space station.
The crew of Skylab 3 saw something strange at one of their windows, and it was kind of an oscillating red-orange lights off in the distance. The crew couldn't discern exactly what it was, just the certainty that it was tracking them, or they were tracking it rather, for quite a long time. The most logical explanation was that it was a satellite or some kind of debris, but the crew did note at the time that they had seen other satellites in orbit, and the satellites looked like they do on Earth, and this phenomenon they'd seen, these lights, didn't look like that at all.
Ultimately, the public explanation was that it was just a reflection of the panel in the background of the space window. In the window, exactly. But there are training modules of these things where you can actually go inside and replicate the conditions of how this would be. And so, as far as the red lights are concerned, the panel does not have 2 or 3 red lights. It only has 1. So it dismisses the idea that it was a reflection of the instrument panel. I find it very interesting. Would I be correct in assuming that these space stations are equipped with cameras?
Well, so there's some video from the shuttle here. We have seen some modified, unexplained like the footage that we're looking at, the video footage of STS-80, clearly show what appear to be powered vehicles operating in low Earth orbit, clearly performing the way UFOs or extraterrestrial spacecraft are supposedly able to perform.
While NASA scientists dismiss these objects as ice particles, the incredible images have fascinated researchers, including aerospace engineer and digital imaging expert, Dr. Mark Carlotto. After spending countless hours studying the footage, he has come to the conclusion that the objects in these images were intelligently controlled.
A number of objects are seen just after sunrise. The conjecture by NASA, the explanation is that these are the result of particles that move from shadow into sunlight and suddenly become illuminated. So they appear to the camera and then they move, and then if there's a thrust fire or some other action, they change direction. However, NASA spokespersons do not comment on what's seen earlier in the video. Here, we're looking at the Earth about a minute or so before the disks and the streaks appear. And we're looking at, as the camera zooms, we're looking at Puerto Rico. That's that bright blob that we see in the middle of the screen. As the camera zooms, the camera operator is moving around as if they're looking for something. And in a moment, we'll see something suddenly appear, almost literally out of nowhere. If we look at this event more closely, it leaves a trail or a wake behind it. And it happens very quickly. It's very unusual. In this particular map, we see Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and I will now overlay one of the frames of the video. You see the object appearing and moving left to right. In 1/2 second, this object moves 340 miles, which is a speed of 680 miles per second. This object moves as fast as a bolt of lightning. There are no thunderstorms in the area. It is unlike any natural phenomenon that's known. And this object has never been mentioned by NASA or anyone that's talked about this video.
Is it possible that NASA has already captured footage of an extraterrestrial presence in outer space, only to dismiss it as natural phenomenon? Ancient astronaut theorists believe that as humankind continues to venture further out into the cosmos, it is only a matter of time before we record an alien encounter that is impossible to deny.
So what's the next step then? Going to Mars, I suppose. Do you think we'll find some answers to a lot of our questions there?
Well, I'll tell you one answer that I can't wait to find.
We had a race to the moon, and now it's a race to Mars, but now there's a lot more players in this game, right? I mean, we've got the Chinese, and
You've got the three governments, you know, the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans are going to get to the moon and Mars from a government standpoint. But I'm telling you, some of these rich billionaires are going to get there whether we want them to or not.
I think they'll probably do it a lot more cost effective than these governments. Well, now that we're getting close to Mars, do you think we'll find some answers to a lot of our questions there?
Well, I'll tell you one answer that I can't wait to find. There's a photograph that you can still find it, and